Is your family lost in the wilderness? Join me and my special guest for this important conversation today on Family Vision. Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries. I'm excited about these next two special bonus editions of Family Vision because I want to introduce you to a longtime friend of mine, Brian Haynes. Brian is the lead pastor at Bay Area Church outside Houston, the author of several books, and the most recent being War in the Wilderness. Brian, welcome to Family Vision.
Thank you, Rob. Always great to be with you.
Brian, I think you and I first connected at the D6 conference, this national movement of family ministry. And the Lord's used you, your first book, I think, Legacy Path, to equip pastors around the world with a vision for family ministry and equipping families. In this new book, War in the Wilderness. Fight for your family when life isn't as it should be, I know has brought so much hope, especially to parents that are in some deep, deep valleys right now. And in these next two episodes, we're going to spend some time going through that. But first of all, you have led a lot of ministry trips to Israel. And these have been unique trips, kind of not the normal Israel tour trips that many others have done, but these have been hiking trips through the wilderness. And I confess, every time you promote one of those, I've been a little jealous because I want to go, and maybe someday the Lord will open up the opportunity to do it. But I'd love for you to just share about these trips, and I guess why have you continued to do them?
Yeah, so I have been going to Israel in that way since 2006 and other biblical lands too, Jordan, Turkey, Egypt. And my overarching goal is simply to make disciples. So I like to take Western people, American, Canadian, European people, and immerse them in the Eastern context of the scriptures. I think it changes the way they read the scriptures. I'm sure of it. And also, I know that it changes the way they think about discipleship and their walk with Jesus. And so that has been my driving force. Like, I want to rip the American Jesus off the wall and insert biblical Jesus in the lives of people, families, and churches. And so that's why I've been walking those ancient paths for all these years.
Now, it's sometimes been pretty grueling, right? I mean, you're out there.
It's physical. So it is the best of both worlds. We have great accommodations at night, great breakfast, great dinner, but during the day, it's like the bus drops you off and we find the ancient path of Moses or Joshua or the disciples or Jesus or whoever. And we walk that ancient path. And the idea is to engage your head, your heart, your hands, and your feet. It's really a rabbinic model of discipleship, very kinesthetic. We want you to smell the scriptures. We want you to know them with your feet, and this is just a step toward that. And so it's been worth it. When I started, I was like 34. Now I'm 50, so my knees are feeling it a little bit more, but it's so worth it. And everyone who goes would say it was hard, but it was the best experience I've ever had.
Now, I want to talk about the parallel that you draw between the Israelites' journey through the wilderness and our journey as families.
Sure. So I think it's important to understand the geography of the wilderness that the people are traversing. And we try to experience that. And so there are many words in the Bible for wilderness, but three stick out and they're important for us to understand because they apply to our life. They're like seasons of life that we actually traverse. So when you think about the wilderness, think about southern Israel, think about Egypt, the Sinai. All of this area is where the Bible sort of unfolds coming out of Egypt and into the promised land. And so you get three words, clear words for wilderness used in the text. One is midbar. Midbar is desert you can survive in. So it's kind of like the normal desert. You can make things grow there. You can find water there. It's green at times. You can make things grow. You could survive there. It's still desert. It's still hard, but it's normal. And in our lives, the normal kind of parts of our lives are like midbar. We're still in a desert. We just forget. the biblical context between two gardens, the Garden of Eden and then this Garden of Shalom in Revelation chapter 21, where no more tears, no more crying, no more pain, everything's restored, everything in between wilderness. So we are living in Midbar when we feel kind of normal. But then there is a second word for wilderness or desert, and that is the word Sia. Sia is desert you can survive in if you have help. So this is an area of the wilderness that if you have community, if you have hospitality, if you have a guide who knows what he's doing, where he's going, what the paths are, he can provide water and food and shelter and those kinds of things. You can survive that, but you have to have help. You're not going to survive that on your own. So there are times in our life that we actually go through SIA, and I imagine every listener can relate to that. They would think I wouldn't have made it through this portion of my life if it weren't for these people who guided me, who provided for me, who covered me, who prayed for me. That's Sia when we go through kind of a darker, harder, more scorched land in life. And then there's a third kind of wilderness, and that is Yeshimon. Yeshimon is desert you can't survive in. So this is the worst kind. We take people to Yeshimon for 4 hours. Everybody's got a $200 pair of hiking shoes on. We take water, extra water in. We take snacks. I know as the guide, I've got to get them out of there in 4 hours because after 4 hours, people start dehydrating, and it's a difficult physical situation at that point. And so, Yashimon is the hardest part of wilderness. It's desert you can't survive in. And so it doesn't matter if you have hospitality or help, at some point you're not going to survive it. That's how bad it is. There's no water, no trees, no place to lay your head, no shelter, no refuge. Yashimon is rough, and it's the worst part of life. And maybe some of the listeners that are listening, they would say, I've been there. I went to Yashimon and I didn't think I would make it. Somehow I made it, but it was the worst. And I can understand that um, as a person, as a husband, as a father, as a pastor. But Yeshimon is that. It's the worst. It's the worst place. And that's actually when you begin to read the scriptures and look at the geography, this is where the greatest miracles occur. So like water from a rock or manna from heaven or their shoes don't wear out. It's where the greatest miracles occur. And this is the thing. In Yashimon, the only way out of Yashimon is God himself. Like you have to have a miracle from God. You have to have the presence of God. You have to have the power of God to make it through because on your own, you're not going to make it.
Brian, what can happen in the heart of a family when they're in a Yeshimon wilderness, this place of despair, hopelessness, pain, and they look around, probably at church, maybe at their Christian school, and they see all the perfect, happy people, right? All the people that have obviously no problems of any kind. What happens in their hearts sometimes?
Well, a couple of things, and I'd like to say I know this in theory, but I know I know it by experience. Um, you look around from Yashimon, especially if you spend some time there, and you begin to believe lies. Lies like God doesn't love me like he loves them. God doesn't provide for me like he provides for them. What did I do? You begin to think like I'm cursed. What did I do to land in Yashimon for this long and go through this thing for this long? And yet this guy or this gal or these people are just, always on a cruise or standing on a beach in Florida and I can't breathe. And so I think what happens is you begin to believe lies. Like social media propagates it because people just put their best life now on social media. And as they do that, and you're living reality, you just begin to believe lies, and it can cause actually things like envy, jealousy, depression, anxiety. Even it's all part of the enemy's game to distance us from God. He's really good at that, and so I think that's part of what happens at least, lots of questions about life and about who God is. Yashimon, the worst part of the wilderness, brings up the hardest questions about God, about yourself. And the enemy, he likes to insert lies right there. And if we're not sitting in the presence of God, even in Yashimon, we will believe the lies, and we will walk them out, you know. And so I think that's a big part of what happens in anger bubbles. You begin to get angry either with other people, with your spouse, with the kid that's driving everybody crazy in the context of your home, or with people that say things that they don't understand the depth of your pain and the difficulty of your journey. And they say things like, just choose joy. You're like, I would if I could, but I
Yeah.
can't. I won't. That's where you're at in your life.
Well, I know in our next episode, we're going to talk about your Yashimon. And as you were going through those three different types of wilderness and you were painting this bleak picture of the Yashimon wilderness, saying basically, look, you're toast and you've got no hope, I was starting to feel pretty discouraged. And then when you said, okay, these are the times when the Israelites were in those places, that's when there was a miracle. That's when their only hope, literally and in every way, was God. And I think one of my favorite chapters in the book, War of the Wilderness, is when you talked about some of the characteristics of God in the wilderness. And you talked about him as living water and shepherd, fortress, shade, wind, light, path. As we finish this first conversation, can you just pick a couple of those to talk a little bit more about?
Yes. So God wants us to know him in the wilderness. He knows we're between the Garden of Eden and the New Jerusalem. He knows we're living life. The metaphor for life is wilderness. He knows that. And so he gives us pictures of who he is that are desert pictures. Psalm 68:4, sing to God, sing praises to his name, lift up a song to him who rides through the deserts. His name is the Lord, exalt him. I mean, this is just telling us like this is a God who owns it. He's sovereign over it. He rides through it. And then we get these just beautiful pictures. So there's a couple that mean a lot to me. Shepherd. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23. In Psalm 23 is buried the valley of the shadow of death, the wadi of the shadow of death. This is the deepest valley and the darkest part of the wilderness. And we have a shepherd. God presents himself as a shepherd who knows the way through the valley, the wadi of the shadow of death. How does he know that? Well, he's sovereign, he's creator over everything, but also he sent his son, his only son, the good shepherd, the one he loves, who traversed the wadi of death, the valley of the shadow of death, and rose again. He knows the way through the valley of the shadow of death. And so shepherd in the wilderness picture is intimate. It's me having someone to follow who knows the paths, someone who knows my name, and someone who I know intimately. I can hear their voice, and they have a specific call for me. So shepherd in the wilderness is huge. So the Lord is my shepherd. Second is shade. Psalm 121:5 says, the Lord is the shade at my right hand. And I have many times in 112, 116 degree Fahrenheit, taken 40 people, found the one acacia tree in Sia, in the kind of desert you can survive in if you have help, and stuffed them under that acacia tree in the shade. And the temperature drops like 10, 15 degrees. And if we're blessed, there's a little breeze. And everybody will go, oh, in that moment. And the reason they do is because it brings relief. And I think a lot as we traverse the wilderness of life that we need to understand the Lord is our relief, our shade in the midst of that. Like if we have him, we have just enough to keep going. And then, of course, water. I mean, there's nothing that you need more than water in the wilderness. If you don't have it, you will die. And so in the pictures of water from Leviticus and the festival of Sukkot all the way through the New Testament into Revelation are amazing. But I love that Jesus said to the woman at the well, if you knew who I was, and you're thirsty, you would ask, and I would give you a drink, and you would never thirst again. He says at the festival of Sukkot in John chapter 7, if anyone's thirsty, let him come to me and drink. It's just beautiful pictures of who God is in the wilderness. He's everything we need, is what we need most. He's our relief. He's our guide through it. And there's so many other pictures, Rob, but those are three that really stick out to me.
I love it. Brian, we're going to continue this conversation in the next episode of Family Vision. I want to encourage everybody, pick up a copy of this book, War in the Wilderness, Brian Haynes, Haynes. In fact, we're going to be giving away 5 copies of this. The first 5 people that email us at podcast@visionaryfam.com and requesting a free copy of War in the Wilderness, we'd be happy to send that to you as a gift. But Brian, tell folks how they can get more connected with your ministry.
Yeah, a couple of ways. You can just go to brianhaynes.org. I'm really active on social media. So Brian Haynes. My dad's name is Michael, thus the M Brian Haynes is Twitter, Instagram, good places there, or just bayarea.church. You can find me there.
That's great. Well, we're looking forward to this next conversation, and we're going to make things a little bit more personal because we're going to talk about, you have a story to share about a deep wilderness chapter in your family and how the Lord met you in that place. As always, if you have prayer needs, you have questions, comments that you'd like to share from this episode, you can email us directly at podcast@visionaryfam.com. That's podcast@visionaryfam.com. And we're looking forward to our next time together with you on Family Vision.